Good afternoon to everybody who's tuning into Entrepreneur Australia today to listen to what we have to discuss. My special guest is Bronwen Sciortino, who's author, international author, and a simplicity expert. Now, as you'll know, firstly, welcome, Bronwen. Thank you for joining us. Lovely to have you here today and to share with us your message and your news and what you do. So thank you for making the time. To those listening in, firstly, this gets out to roughly 20,000 people within the week. For those of you who have a unique message, value that you can add to the entrepreneurial sort of community, to business owners, managers, please don't hesitate to make contact with me, and we will interview you and get your message out there, and we will make an effort to add value to entrepreneurs and business people across Australia and perhaps even across the world. So Entrepreneur Australia, you can go and have a look, www.entrepreneuraustralia.com.au. Now really over to you, Bronwen. You know, I recently made contact with you. We recently crossed paths, and your profile and what you do, the nature of your work really jumped out at me, and I thought, here's a fascinating person. Really would like to learn more. Your topic is, I think, enormously valuable. What you do, I think, is enormously valuable. I work with, and have done for many years, predominantly privately owned businesses, and they all struggle with work pressure, struggle with work-life balance, struggle with stress. And we all know that in this world today, stress is a hot topic. So as sort of a simplicity expert, can I ask you to just kick off by sharing with us who you are, what's your background, what does that mean?
Yeah, sure. Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me with you today. I'm really looking forward to where our conversation takes us.
Mm-hmm.
I spent almost 2 decades in the corporate world myself, but a lot of my time in the corporate world was actually working with small and medium businesses in how to actually grow their businesses. So whilst I've had a background in large corporate world, a lot of my time was actually hands-on, sleeves rolled up, actually getting in and working with small and medium businesses. So my experience actually, spans across all of those different areas. Basically, how I became a simplicity expert was that I way too hard for way too long. I allowed myself to sit in a cooker pressure environment where stress and exhaustion ran the everyday life that I was living. And I went from being an award-winning executive to on the floor, unable to cope in everyday life and unable to stop crying. And that happened in less than 60 seconds.
Wow.
And I thought that I was just ticking all the boxes, doing what I needed to do, being who I needed to be, sorting out everybody's life, and spent no time actually looking after myself.
Can I ask you, and not to delve too deeply on the personal front, was that what you would just define as a breakdown? Was it sort of a depressive type of incident? I think I just sort of want to probe a little bit, because I know firsthand that there are a lot of people out there that are struggling with very similar things. That depression seems to be running rampant at the moment. Stress and depression seem to be pretty fair business bed partners. And I think a lot of people struggle to talk about what they're going through. And quite often when they hit the wall, it's a surprise to those around them, and potentially even a little bit too late for them.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. For me, I had a lot of physical symptoms. So I had a lot of pain and inflammation in my body. I was exhausted all the time. I was literally dragging myself out of bed. I had a lot of thoughts around, there's got to be an easier way to do this. It must be easier. Maybe it's just better if I go and collapse completely and just end up in a mental institution somewhere where I can be drugged to the eyeballs. I don't have to worry about things. You know, you have these thoughts, and then you just go back into that mode of, you know, you're so trained and conditioned around, you should be grateful for what you have in life, and somebody else out there has things worse off than you do, so you should just, you know, button up and get on with it. We have these messages around us that tell us to keep soldiering on, push through, just do it, all of these sorts of conditioning messages. And, you know, for me, you know, I'm sort of talking 5 to 7 years ago and I did have a complete breakdown off the back of burnout. But, you know, 7 years ago, 5 to 7 years ago, even, it was even less talked about, you know. And I think one of the biggest lessons I learned through going through the process is that when you have a physical injury, people can actually see what's wrong with you. They can actually see and point at and say, you've got a broken leg and that should take roughly this amount of time to heal. And they can see you going through the process of healing. But often when you've got, you know, some sort of mental health issue, it is internal. People can't see it. And I found, you know, I looked really well. And people couldn't understand that there was something wrong with me. And because it's such a personal experience. And you have to find the personal solution for it. Everyone around you can't understand it. And so they start talking about they decide what's wrong with you. They decide what's going to solve that. And they get relatively upset when you don't necessarily go down that pathway and follow what they think you should do. And they can't understand why you're not getting better as quickly as they think you should be. It's sort of one of those areas where it makes people really uncomfortable because people don't understand it. And so people just want to move on and move past it really quickly. So it is really, really important that we talk about it. We actually really normalize how abnormal being stressed all the time is, and that we start to really move forward and find different, really simple and easy ways that we can reduce the stress and start to live our life really differently.
Oh, very, very valuable, Bronwen. Very, very valuable. We're going off script immediately.
That's okay. That happens all the time.
Yes. So and I know that those that are listening into this and who will view it will find it absolutely invaluable. It is a subject that many people kind of don't want to broach. They don't want to talk about it. I know that for men in particular, it's a difficult subject to raise and to share and to talk about. It conflicts with Australian culture.
Absolutely.
We've got to toughen up and, you know, take a teaspoon of concrete and get on with, princess.
Yeah, exactly.
But I suppose I want to use this opportunity for those that are listening in to just say that for those that feel they are depressed, they are burnt out, they do feel as though they're in a bit of a slump or dark place, there is help. You know, there's Lifeline, there's Beyond Blue, there's
Black Dog Institute.
There's an amazing organization called Hero to Zero that focuses on young people's mental health. There's a lot of help. And, you know, if you're feeling today as though, you know, it's all too much, then my personal message to you is give it a day or two and talk to people, because tomorrow will be different.
Yeah, but I would also say recognize that the way that we have normalized stress in our everyday life plays a massive role in how you're actually feeling and coping with what's going on as well. So if you feel like you're under a lot of stress and you feel that level of depression and anxiety as well, then it's highly likely the two are connected. You know, because of what happens within us physically when we are stressed, it basically retains a whole heap of toxins in our system, and our body gets overloaded and it can't cope. And mentally and physically, we're not built to be under chronic stress long term. So, you know, just take on board that, you know, the way you're feeling right now is not necessarily the reality and the truth of what's going on. There are really simple things that you can do to start to back that in a different direction, change your life, move forwards. And it starts with just that one step of getting help in some format.
Yes, and there are, I suppose, very strong message coming out of this early part of the discussion is that there are really wonderful organizations and people out there that can help you.
Yeah.
Now, I could spend a great deal of time on this topic for personal reasons, and I won't share those reasons now. But for those that are close to me will know that my personal life, my family's personal life, was plunged into a very, very, very bad place a few years ago. And, I too have been battling severe depression for the first time in my whole life.
Yeah.
So, when you look at me, you may think, well, what the hell is he talking about?
Yeah.
I know what it is, and I know what it is to cry out and go to people who can help. And, I deal with small to medium business owners, entrepreneurs, and many other people, and have done for a long period of time, who just get on with it. And they bear the load, they handle the stress, and quite often they don't know that there's a different way.
Yeah.
So I suppose that's part of what you want to share today. That is, what is it now to live a simple life? How did you go about changing your life, and what's your thought to people that are listening in around living a more simple life?
Yeah, I guess for me, when my life shattered, it was like me being shattered into a million pieces on the floor around me.
Mm-hmm.
And because I pushed so hard and for so long, and I broke with such spectacular force, I was forced to completely stop and to rebuild myself and my life.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about the normal everyday reaction that we have to change, we're so afraid of changing. And that's when we actually consciously make the decision to change. For me, I had wholesale change forced on me with no warning, out of nowhere, and I had to deal with that. So it took 3 years of really intensive, invasive and overwhelming work to pick up each of those pieces and decide whether it fitted, in what I like to call Bronwen 2.0, or whether or not there was pieces that I needed to let go. And that meant that I had to look at all the pieces. That's the things that we think are good about us, are bad about us, what's worked for us, what hasn't, what people have told us is appropriate or not about the character that we have, and all of those sorts of things. And I had to really find the way that allowed me to look at the pieces of me with no judgment, and to really take everybody else's opinion out of the equation.
So can I interject there, Bronwen? So 3 years, it took you 3 years to sort of start piecing yourself back together. What did you do over those 3 years? What was it that you found worked for you?
Yep. So it became about, first of all, I stepped into working with a counsellor. And my breakdown was triggered by, I was given a diagnosis that the psoriasis on my head was not psoriasis, and it was skin cancer, and I was going to need plastic surgery. And so that sort of came about in over a 20-second period of time. And I stepped into being really annoyed. I was just so frustrated and annoyed because I had to schedule something else into my day, and it was something for me, and I just wasn't used to doing that. And it wasn't until they actually took the bandages off my head post-surgery that the shock that I received looking in the mirror was big enough to drop me completely. So that sort of, I'd pushed and pushed and pushed. I'd pushed through burnout, got the physical sort of reaction, didn't even stop when I got the diagnosis, kept going, kept pushing through. And then finally it was the vision in the mirror that really just shocked me enough to drop me completely. And so I stepped into working with a counsellor. They started asking me to really just, try and identify where the emotion was coming from. How was I feeling? What did that look like for me? How, where was I putting the blame on me? Where was I, really being hard on myself? What did that look like? And actually, as part of that process, they identified that I was terrified of writing anything personal down. And I had really strong perfectionist tendencies. And what I'd done was create this really complex spiral for myself, where if I wrote anything down about myself, somebody could use that as evidence against me that I wasn't perfect. And I was terrified. So
Wow.
it became homework, because that's what I needed to do, was clearly work on that journaling sort of aspect and start to really get out some of these beliefs and the things that were really piecing me together in a way that wasn't working. And as part of that process, my first book was written. So Keep It Super Simple was written as part of my recovery. And that was written about halfway through that 3-year period.
Okay, Keep It Super Simple.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And is that available to people if they want to get
Absolutely. Yeah. You can actually go through the website, through my website, or you can go to any of, there's about 170 of the world's largest online bookstores. So Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Book Depository, Fish Pond, Booktopia, they've all got it in hard copy and also e-copy as well.
Okay. Do you want to just give your website details, please, Bronwen?
Yeah, so you can either go to bronwensciortino.com or chiclife.com. So Chic Life is my company, or if you just type in bronwensciortino.com, it'll go straight to there. And that's BRONWENSCIORTINO.com. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. So, so for me, it was really that the journaling process is what really brought out a lot of things. And I started writing about what it meant to be busy and how we cope with change and our comfort zones and what they do for us, and spirals and the choices that we make when we get stuck in life spirals and all of those sorts of things. As I wrote and those things came out and were unveiled, what happened is people started saying, the world needs this, we have to have this, it's got to be in a book. It went out into the world and people started getting really excited and, this is amazing, how else can we work with you? And so suddenly I had a global business where I then had to really start to create a platform that would support me working within that environment, because I was accidentally an entrepreneur, and suddenly I had to work out how I was going to do that. So it became I started investigating energy management and how do we as individuals manage our unique energy flows so that we're constantly refueling our energy tanks and we're not exhausted all the time. What are the things that are stressing us out? Because we're unique individuals. There's a unique combination of things that stress you out compared to stressing me out. What are those things and how can we really simply move past that and start to reduce those things? So that's where my mind went. And from there, I've written another 2 books. I've been featured in another 3 online program and sourced globally through media and podcast platforms like this to really get the message out there that we can do this really simply. And stress and burnout and exhaustion don't have to play a role in our life.
That's incredible. Well done. Massive achievements. So the question I want to ask you there is, do you believe that, stress is real? Do we live in a more stressful world today? And does it have to be that way? And if it doesn't have to be that way, if we think in particular about, small to medium business owner managers who lead extremely busy lives, and often my experience has been that they wear far too many hats. I think the statistics suggest that 70% plus of them start their own businesses for lifestyle purposes. And my in-practice experience has been that they really don't have wonderful lifestyles.
Yeah.
Now, so question is, stress is a reality. Is it different to what it was in past years? And does it have to be that way? And what would you suggest to people?
Yeah, it's a great question, because traditionally we are trained that stress comes from work. And that used to be the case. But now, in our 24/7 highly connected, highly visible environment, it is so much more than just work. Stress comes from so many places that it didn't ever used to. So, if you think about the level of preservatives and additives that are in food that didn't ever used to be, our body reacts in a fight or flight response to preservatives and additives. So we go straight into fight or flight. That's a stress response. Think about the chemicals that are and the toxins that are in personal products. So deodorant, moisturizers, toothpaste, for the women, makeup. All of that has a lot more chemicals than it ever used to, and that creates a fight or flight response in the body. There's more cars on the road, the fumes create that fight or flight. The technology that's around us, not only are we exhausted from being online all the time, but we have the impact of social media and having to be highly visible, trying to prove what we're achieving, trying to prove how successful we are. Our A game has to be on all the time. But then you've got the overlay of the electromagnetic frequencies that interferes with our natural bodily systems as well. And that means that kicks in the fight or flight response. There's so many things that create the toxic relationships, toxic places, a massive commute. There's so many things that create stress now that didn't ever used to be there. But we're still stuck in this mindset that stress is caused by work. So we're always looking to work to find the problems in our life when really it's a combination of different things. And we have to work out what that is for each of us, and then start to really just, one by one, put little things in place where we can just back that off a bit. And there's such underrated, highly underrated, yet highly effective ways that you can significantly cut stress really quickly. And two of those is, the first one is deep abdominal breathing a couple of times a day. And the second is get outside and stand next to a tree. And if you can do both those things together at the same time, you can cut your stress in that day by up to 20%.
Okay, so
highly underrated.
So I want to just back up a little bit if you don't mind. So the first thing we're doing is we're acknowledging that we live in an extremely sort of stressful world. It's not just about work, it's about every aspect of our existence today. Clearly, if you live in the sort of Tibetan mountains or whatever, your experience with stress would be quite different to living in central Sydney or New York.
Yep.
But we live in a world which is very different to what it was 30, 40, 50, 100 years ago.
Or even 10 years ago.
Or even 10 years ago.
Yep.
That's exactly right. So if I'm the individual, and again, I suppose it's it's a generic point. My need is to focus in on small to medium business owners at this point in time, but it applies equally to all of us.
Correct.
You are or not a business owner, manager. How do they know? What symptoms do you think they should be looking for in themselves to identify burnout and to identify that it's all getting too much?
Yeah. It's another great question, because it's something that people really need to understand. Everybody is really different, so everybody will have different symptoms, but there are some things which have been commonly identified as showing up. So I'll share those things with you, but please don't limit what you look at within yourself to these things, because there may be other cues. And it's really important that you start to reconnect with you and work out what your symptoms are. So the first one is just that complete and utter bone deep exhaustion. So I'm not talking about, I didn't get sleep last night for a couple of hours and so I'm a bit tired today. I'm talking about the alarm goes off in the morning and you literally have to try and drag your eyes open. And then you have to try and, it takes all the effort you've got within you to really drag yourself out of bed, but you're compelled to do it because you feel like you have to keep going. And then it feels like as you're working through the day, it's just everything, your body's really heavy and you feel like you're just dragging yourself through every step. But somehow you're just pulling the energy up out of somewhere to be able to keep going. And you're constantly saying to yourself, oh, if I just keep going, if I do this, if I just keep going, if I just keep going. It's kind of that sort of mindset. It's a complete lack of motivation around things. So you can't get motivated for anything. You find your mind wandering off and you can't really concentrate. And you're present where you are, but it's really difficult to be engaged in anything that you're doing. You tend to have much more negative thought processes, they're normal, and you find yourself being really pessimistic and almost sarcastic about life as well.
Yeah.
Often a symptom is, your immune system is low, so you catch everything that's going around in the office, and but you still feel like you have to keep going. So, if there's a flu or a stomach bug or whatever, you will get it, and you're still pushing through it all the time. And the other big one is just that inability to connect with anyone around you. You just don't want to do the things you'd normally want to do with your family or your friends. You sort of feel like you're withdrawing really inwardly, and you don't really want to go anywhere or do anything. You don't feel like you're good company. You don't want to be in the presence of anyone in case how your feeling starts to affect people. So they're kind of the really big ones. But as I say, it is really unique to each of us. So we really need to start the process of connecting with ourselves again, so we can understand what's going on for us.
Yes, yes. Look, I think, you've just added considerable value to those listening in right there in how you've summed that up. And again, this is not an interview or discussion about me, but I can relate a lot, to what you've just said. And again, to those listening in, it's okay to talk about these things.
Absolutely. We need to normalize the conversation.
Normalize the conversation. If you're struggling in your workplace, if you're struggling with your business, don't try and tough it out. You don't have to do it by yourself. A large part of what I've done through the years in giving business advice and helping, coaching, mentoring, etc., is to go into businesses that are predominantly family owned or private, and to work with extremely smart, very accomplished, highly educated, in some cases extremely wealthy business founders, business owner, managers, husband and wife teams, and the like, who have really lost their way because of pressure, because of stress. Their decision-making process becomes impaired. Their self-confidence goes out the window.
Yeah, that's massive.
Their zest for life, their enthusiasm wanes, and everything they look at is negative. And part of what, somebody like myself, and there's many good people out there that do this kind of thing, is to cut through the noise and to, I suppose, reestablish focus, confidence, clear decision-making, and in essence, hold their hands whilst they piece things together again. So from a small to medium business owner perspective, from a business person perspective and the like, don't try and just tough it out. There are people that you can talk to, get help, particularly the males. Egos, they get in the way. And
I think that's true for everyone. But males are more reluctant to step forward.
And call for help. Very reluctant to call in for help. So now that we kind of have identified it and we know it's a reality, it is a reality, I want to go back to what you said about the breathing and stepping out of your physical environment, go stand next to a tree or the like. And, just I suppose reiterate those 2 points. It sounds simple. I guess that's really what this is about, the simplicity and making things simple. That learnt breathing capability, the breathing rhythms, the finding stillness is enormous. It's a long tried and tested Buddhist, Hindu, Christian methodology. I'm going a little bit out of my realm of pay grade. And stepping out and hugging a tree or looking at a fly or, just take a moment, get some fresh air. What other things? What else could you suggest?
I think the number one, the other one that's great is grounding. But a lot of people, as soon as you talk about grounding, people start going, oh, we're going down the hippie, that kind of woo-woo track. But this is another one that's highly underrated but highly effective. So it's getting your bare feet into the earth in some format, whether that's in grass, whether it's dirt. One of the best ones is actually, and I'm loving seeing the water behind you because it's a perfect reminder. Get your feet into the ocean and into the sand, in the water, and just go for a walk. With no expectations, no requirements, no judgments, no goals on that walk. Just allow yourself to absorb. Because when you rebalance the negative ions in your system and you ground, straight away you're sending a signal to your parasympathetic nervous system that it's fine for you to relax and it's fine for you to actually just switch out of fight and flight mode. And really, the statistics are showing that 70% of us spend more than 80% of every day in fight or flight mode. And when you're in fight or flight mode, nothing in your body works. So none of your organs, none of the, your digestive tract, none of that works. And so your body is just literally storing toxins upon toxins upon toxins. And it takes an hour for that to come back online once you actually move back into the parasympathetic nervous system. So if you are one of the people who are in fight or flight mode for 80% of the day, you can see that your body's not functioning properly. Your body's not doing the job that it's supposed to do. And that will, the fight or flight mode being in there for 80% of the day will also affect your ability to get really good quality sleep. And so when we don't sleep well, that's where the exhaustion element comes in. And, everything's so much harder when we're exhausted. Everything's harder. So the number one thing that I recommend, or there's two things really that I recommend to people. One is work out where your stress is coming from, and then just start to, incrementally work out what you can do in little steps to reduce it. And the second one is really that energy management, really start to understand your energy flow. Where does your energy come in, and what are you doing to refuel your energy every day?
Yeah, again, just my personal 5 cents on that. And, if you'd asked me a few years ago, I would have been one of those people that poo-pooed it and said, don't talk to me about this hippie stuff, and let's get back to the numbers, please.
Yeah.
But
me too, to be honest.
Yeah,
me too.
Absolutely. It's been, I suppose, quite a journey. But I've sort of spent some time with yoga and meditation, and for those that haven't heard of it, sound therapy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Long walks on the beach, sitting, watching the sunset, watching sunrise, listening to the birds sort of arc up as the sun is rising, and taking time to actually look at the butterfly or the dragonfly and enjoy the wonders of that, and break with your 9-to-5 routine. The other thing, of course, I'm stating the obvious, just to throw in my couple of cents, is exercise.
Movement.
Endorphins going, to get into the gym, to get on a bike, to blow out the cobwebs. Because if you're sitting at a desk all day, suffering stress, pressure, and the like, and you come home and you bring those thoughts home and you have your dinner, sit on the couch, and you allow your mind to toil with you, you go to bed with those thoughts, you don't sleep well, you wake up in the morning, you feel awful, and as you've said, it becomes a bit of a spiral.
Yeah.
Bronwen, now you design products and courses, and you offer advice in this. Can you allude to that? Can you share with us what that looks like and what you do?
Yeah, well, I guess for me, having experienced that pit and being to the very bottom of that pit and having to claw my way back out and put myself back together piece by piece, it became really important to me that, everything that I do now is all about helping as many people as possible avoid having to go through that. And be able to actually really simply and easily turn their lives around and do things in a really different way. So that's what I do now every day, is I just teach people there's a really different way to live, and that you don't have to choose between being happy and healthy and successful. You can have all three of those things, and you can do it really simply as long as you're prepared to tailor make what's right for you. And that means stepping outside the noise and stepping outside the chaos and working out what's right for you. So it was fantastic hearing about the things that you've been doing in terms of your meditation and all of those sorts of things. But that might not be the answer for everyone. You need to try and find out what the right solution for you is. So one of the things that I recognized in my recovery was that there was so many businesses out there who are using manipulative trigger marketing to try and tell people what's wrong with them, tell people how they've got into the mess that they're in, hit the fear of missing out switch and the fear of missing out trigger, and then tell them, here's the step-by-step way that you need to sort yourself out and you know, be healed. And the damage that that's doing in the world is significant, because we are all unique, extraordinary individuals. And so we need a unique and extraordinary solution, you know, for us to work forward. And the only way for us to get that is for us to design that for ourselves. So all of my books, my products, you know, my online trainings, whether it's my mentoring, whatever it is, all of that is designed so that you can actually go and ask yourself questions and start to find your own answers. Learn from yourself and then work out what your step is moving forwards. And I feel that that's really important, because I feel that that power has really been handed over. People have just gone, it's all too hard. I've done everything that I'm supposed to do. I've ticked all the boxes and I'm still in this mess. And then they're sort of just, you know, stuck in that spiral, and they're going round and round and round. So everything that I do is all about empowering you in your own life, helping you to really connect with who you are and what you need, and then create really simple steps for yourself to move forward in a really different way.
You know, I just love the term that you're using there, empower, which again resonates extremely well with me. Because essentially I think it's up to you. You know, you need to empower yourself. You need to take responsibility for yourself. Because as much as those people around you, and there are so many that do love you and do care,
absolutely,
do want to help, but besides the very little that they can do in the kind words or the hugs, they are powerless.
Yep.
Now, of course, besides your wonderful material and books and that everybody should go and have a look at, you know, I'll share a couple of readings that, you know, I read over the past couple of years. One is The Choice, and the other one is Man's Search for Meaning. And so if you're kind of struggling, you're in a bit of a dark place, I would suggest that, you know, go and have a read and see what level of adversity people can get through by empowering themselves and making the right choice. Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, very well-known survivor of the Holocaust, global leading psychologist, said that ultimately we have a choice, and the main choice, the most important choice that we have, is to choose our attitude.
Yeah.
So we wake up each day and we decide, are we going to continue down this path, or am I going to change it? Now, you know, I didn't expect our conversation to go down this path today. And as I said earlier, I'm not going to share the details of my personal life, but I can share that almost 3 years to the day, we, as a family, we suffered two massive losses, and enormously traumatic and very difficult for everybody as far as the eye could see. And it's been an extremely difficult time. So knowing what it is to wake up every day and to make the right choice and the decision to empower yourself and to take ownership of your own well-being and to piece it together, be it your personal life, your business life, your marriage, or whatever, step by step every single day, as you've said many times today, in a way that works for you.
Yep.
Is kind of the beginning of the journey. You know,
absolutely.
If you feel you can't, then there are organizations and people you can talk to. You know, if you're running a small business out there and you're struggling, I'm sure they can make contact with you, Bronwen.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's many other really good business advisors, coaches, mentors. Chat to your accountant, slow things down, bring focus, take a deep breath, go for a walk, go sit on the beach, go get a good exercise workout, talk to somebody that's slightly removed, you know, write things down. Writing is very important.
Mm. But I think as well, the other thing that's just jumped into my head as you're talking about that, is a lot of people start to go, I'm too busy, I don't have time. But actually, if you look at the research, it's showing that most adults that are engaged in a workplace in some format, whether they're the business owner, whether they're a worker or an employee, it doesn't matter. Most adults are not productive in the workplace over 50% of the time that they're there. Because they're just too stressed, they're under too much pressure, and they're starting to show those signs of burnout and those sorts of things. So you can say I'm too busy, but if you're not productive 50% of the time you're being busy anyway, then you might as well start to use some of that time to bring the stress back under control, to focus on your health and well-being. You know, because I can tell you from my personal experience, the more that you focus on refueling your energy and making sure that you are energized and, you know, you've got the strength and the I guess just the power within yourself to be able to step forward, the easier it is. You know, I give so much more now than I ever did before. I work in a global environment across different time zones. You know, it's nothing for me to be up at 2 a.m. online with the USA somewhere, you know, so you can do it. But you have to step into a space where it's non-negotiable that you put your needs first in terms of what you need to be okay, what you need for your energy to be fueled. And the focus of the day begins with what you give to yourself.
Look, that's a wonderful spot to wrap up. The focus of the day starts or begins with what you give to yourself. And I think it's important that we're all kind to ourselves. We all try and have sort of gentle days, and we have restful evenings, and then we can be more productive, and can be more caring and kind to those around us. And as a result, the energies flow and things begin to work.
Exactly.
Bronwen, I've really enjoyed chatting to you today, and I know that everybody will have enjoyed listening to you and deriving value from what you've had to share. I encourage people to go to your website. I encourage people to contact you. I'm here if anybody wants to chat. If anybody feels they really need to talk about their business or talk about, you know, a difficult space that they're in, they can talk to me, or they can go, you know, I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist or any of that. But if you're in your business and you're struggling, give me a shout, chat to Bronwen. But in closing again,
just before you do that, Doug, what I will say is I've got a really good energy management exercise.
yes.
I usually use this if I'm working with a corporate and I'm doing a workshop or I'm mentoring or whatever. It's the number one tool that I use all the time. So if any of the people watching this today would like that, just shoot me a connection on LinkedIn and ask me to send it to you, and I'll happily do that for free.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bronwen. Thank you so much. Well, it's been wonderful. And we wish you well. I think you sort of, where are you at the moment in the world?
I'm in Perth.
You're in Perth, okay.
Yep.
So we are sort of probably 3 o'clock-ish at the moment, thereabouts,
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
We wish you a wonderful afternoon, and we thank you for sharing with us and adding value to our lives.
Thanks so much for having me, Doug. It's been great.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bronwen. Have a good afternoon and a good evening.
You too.
Okay, thanks. Bye for now.